So why don't you tell me, I guess we could start from the beginning, tell me the name of the foundation and what your mission is and take from there.
Well, the Jacques Pépin Foundation, it actually the working of my daughter and my son-in-law. I've been very lucky this way. I've done so many books. My daughter is doing a Facebook. We have almost 2 million people. I would never have done a Facebook. I would never have done a foundation. My son-in-law did. And I have an art site now, a friend of mine here selling my painting. I would never have done that either. So I've been very lucky with people around me doing things. So my son-in-law is a professional chef, but he teaches at Johnson & Well. And when he started there about 15 years ago, he went on to get his master and eventually his PhD. So he's a full professor there. And he's a very good writer too. And at some point, I think, he said, you've been teaching all your life with all your book and all that in different schools. I mean, I was Dean of Study at the French Culinary Institute in New York for 30 years. I've been teaching at BU at Boston University for 45 years now. I'm still going there.
Yeah.
And so he said, who do you think you would like to teach now? So we talked about it for a while. I said, maybe people who have been a bit disenfranchised by life, like people who come out of jail, drug addict or former drug addict, homeless people, even veterans. So that's what the foundation is all about. So we teach through community kitchen a bit all over the country, with my book and with tape and with demonstration and so forth. I feel that in 6 weeks I can probably teach someone, if that person likes to cook, in 6 weeks I can teach someone how to peel potato and clean salad and poach an eggs, and to see that person likes it, stay in the kitchen. Maybe 5 years later, she or he is the chef, and you have redone your life. And it's something which is very rewarding in many ways. So that's what the foundation is all about.
I mean, if I ran a restaurant and someone came to me and had trained with you, that would probably influence my judgment a little bit.
Oh, maybe. Maybe. I had many restaurants in my life. So the last one with my wife here, we had a restaurant in town called Gloria's French Cafe for quite a number of years.
Why that subject? Why helping people in that context? Is there something about that issue that meant more to you than other options you would have?
Well, basically, to cook for someone, you cannot cook indifferently. You have to give a lot of yourself when you cook. Cooking may be the purest act of love. You cook for your grandmother or for your kid or for your lover or for your dog or whatever. So, you give. There is no political implication in that, racial implication or anything. You cook to please, and in that context, that's what I've done basically all my life. I mean, I started cooking at 13 in 1949. I was in apprenticeship. And my mother had a restaurant. In fact, I count 12 restaurants in the area of France that I come from. 12 of them run by women. The women in Lyon were pretty famous, formidable women of Lyon, are chef, even of 3-star restaurants and so forth. So the women are pretty powerful. In fact, I was the first male to go into that business. I mean, I remember between 56, 58, I was chef to the president in France, going back from Paris, where I was going back to Lyon, and to my aunt at a restaurant in Nantua. I'll go there to get into the kitchen, give her a hand, throw me out. No one was impressed by me. They used too much butter, get out of here. So those women were pretty strong women.
Tougher than the president.
Cooking, yeah, right.
And then when, with regards to someone in jail, for example, or someone, I would think...
Well, someone out of jail, sometimes it's hard to find a job. And, you start in the kitchen, as I say, within a few weeks, if you like it, and give some yourself, you can get there and within a few years become the chef of that restaurant, open your own stuff, and redo your life, and get a lot of satisfaction to that, So.
And would you're probably biased, you would say that someone in that position entering the restaurant industry, that would be a better, more rewarding job for them than other options they would have?
No, first, if someone was interested, I would say, you like to work with your hand to start work. If you like to work with your hand, you want to be a cabinet maker, or you want to work on car, or work on air conditioning, or in the kitchen. If they say, I like to cook, so move in that direction. But
you gotta love it, right?
It depends what you have to love it. It's a lot of work, You work Saturday, Sunday, you work a long hour too, but the kitchen is a big equalizer also. In our foundation, we have our sweatshirt who said, everyone look the same in the eye of the stove. And it's true. When it's 11 o'clock in the morning and you have 100 people sitting down at 12, you really have to move. And the color of the hand of the guy next to you doesn't really matter at all. You just have to move.
You just want to get out of the weeds. I worked in, not like you, but I worked in a number of restaurants in my life. And to this day, even though I don't work in any restaurants at the moment, although I do like to cook a lot, there are skills that to this day, I trace back to time in restaurants.
Yeah.
Managing people, multitasking.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And the speed and all that, I work with, I came here in 1959. In 1960, when I worked at the Pavilion in New York, was considered the greatest restaurant in America at the time. I met Craig Claiborne, who just started at the New York Times. He came to review the Pavilion, and we became friends. Mm-hmm. And he introduced me to Helen McCullough. She has a picture there. She was the food editor of McCall, House Beautiful. She was already in her 60s at the time. She'd never been married, so she kind of became a surrogate mother. Don't do this, do this. And with her, within a few months, she introduced me to James Beard, that she knew well, and to Julia Child. So within a year after I was in America, I knew the trinity of cooking in America was Craig Claiborne, James Beard, and Julia Child, So the food world was very, very small at the time.
Yeah.
And even though one American chef, all the chefs that I knew in New York restaurants were French, Swiss, Italian, whatever, but no American. Before the Culinary Institute of America, others started creating chefs, and now, of course, there are extraordinary chefs here, from Tom Colicchio to Thomas Keller to many, many.
What do you think? What do you think about the food industry, especially in America right now? Like, what are some positive things you see today?
Well, when I came to America in 1959, I lived on 50th between 1st and 2nd Avenue. Then a little supermarket opened there. It was the first time I saw a supermarket. I thought it was a great idea. I didn't have to go to the fish guy, the vegetable guy, the meat guy, like in France. But then there was a lot of package, not that much food. There was one salad, iceberg. There was no leek, no shallot, no oriental vegetable. Sometimes there were parsley, rarely, but thyme, bay leaf, or forget it. So, the world is entirely different than what it was at that time. It's a totally different world, without any question. So, likewise, the restaurant at that time, the Pavilion was considered a great restaurant, but all of the restaurants were either French or so-called continental, which were kind of French with the menu usually totally misspelled, but there was no great Italian restaurant, Chinese, Japanese, and so forth. It was either, there was, Italian restaurant, but it was meatball, pasta, down, good, but not considered elegant to sound the level of 1, 2, 3 star. And now it's totally different. There is extraordinary, Italian, Chinese, as much as French. In a sense, French is much less now important than it used to be. Yeah.
How do you think that change occurred? Do you think it was?
Yeah, because people, especially in America, after the war, for me, I came here in '59. The first time I went back to France was in '62, and it's the first time that I took a plane, actually, because I came on a boat. And at that time, after the war, Americans were starting to go back to Europe, and there was a lot of plane like at Columbia, you know, at those inexpensive planes, very cool. And so Americans who went to France, to Europe during the war, start going back in vacation and so forth, and start getting ideas coming back here. So things started to change in the food world, you know, completely, in many ways, you know. So, and in a way, if you are French in France, but I haven't lived there for a long time, but basically you eat French 95% of the time, and occasionally you may go to a Chinese or whatever Italian restaurant. And likewise, if you're Italian in France, maybe even more so, or Spanish and so forth. In America, not really. People have a more open palate in that sense because they come from different parts of the world. So, and also there isn't an American cuisine totally defined like a French cuisine or Italian and so forth. So people are on the West Coast, they eat one way. You know, on the East Coast, you may have, you know, a lobster roll and a Manhattan clam chowder or New England clam chowder. But it would be different than it is in Europe. So in that sense, Americans also come from so many different countries in the world. They go back to their origin, what they eat. So the cooking is more open in that sense. People have more of an open palate, maybe.
You would say even today, if I went to France, it's still going to be much more traditional than you'd find here in America.
And if I go to France, well, this is what I want. This is what I want going back to France. I want to eat blood sausage, pig's feet, tripe, or stuff that I don't really get.
So what's the dream with the foundation, the long-term dream, would you say?
Well, to educate people and make them happy in the food world, you know. And certainly it's been quite successful. Likewise with Facebook, you know, as I say, we had, I don't know, I don't really do it, it's my daughter, but we had maybe 200,000-300,000 people on Facebook before the pandemic. And Claudine said, why don't you do a recipe of like 3 minutes, 4 minutes for people with what you have left in your refrigerator to, we have 2 million people now, 1.9 or whatever. It's crazy. So, yeah, you bring people together, you know, with cooking. Cooking really the great equalizer this way. I feel that if there is a meeting to be had between the Republican and the Democrat, before they start yelling at one another, they should be required to sit at the table and have a couple of bottles of wine and some food. Then there may be dissension, but it would be more civilized. This is what cooking for, when I was cooking for the president in France, that was the idea, you know, to do those dinner and bring people together and talk at the table, you know. So I serve people like Eisenhower, Nehru, Tito, Macmillan, who were the head of state at the time. I have to say that I was never asked ever to go in the dining room for kudo. That did not exist, period. The cook was in the kitchen, period. I never had an interview in France. Well, television barely existed, but radio, magazine, whatever, that didn't exist. The cook was there, so it was quite different. I mean, the cook was really much at the bottom of the social scale. Now we are genius. I don't know what happened, but
you happened. You helped. And I would think that maybe one's political beliefs may be secondary to how one wants their steak cooked. That may be more offensive.
Probably, yeah, probably, yes.
I was hearing about this 90 for 90.
Oh yes, right. That my son-in-law put together. Yes.
Yeah. What would that be about?
Well, he wanted to do 90 party for my 90th birthday, which is next year, and we are going to New York. In fact, doing the first one in a month or so, at Gramercy Tavern, Andy Meyer, and at Gröter, another 3-star restaurant in New York. So cooks are very generous, you know. They give a lot. I mean, Thomas Keller already is doing one in his restaurant in California, and
The French Laundry.
they had the French Laundry,
Yeah.
and he charged like $2,500, and he had 80 people already to give to. So, yes, people are in our world. People are very, very generous. They give a lot. Yeah.
I'm going to be at maybe 85 of the parties, but I can't do all 90. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
right.
So I'm always fascinated by simplicity, not only in food, but I think in a lot of things in life. So my question is, do you feel that the best recipes are simple or complex?
Both, but it depends also on what you mean by complex. When you have a couple of, if you have caviar and truffle, right away it's complex, but it can be very simple. I
Right.
mean, I went hunting for truffle in France. I remember several times, and there the woman in the field, we find the truffle, we slice them very thin. She put coarse salt on the plate, and a little bit of extra virgin oil at the bottom, or hazelnut oil, I think. A slice of truffle on top, bread and butter, and boy, you know. So, but certainly, it depends where you are, what you do, and so forth. When I was a younger man, when I was working in restaurants, if you work at the pavilion too, of course there are dishes which are much more complex that you don't do at home. Generally, things are simpler. I've always been in my cooking, I think. You may find recipe using parsley and maybe tarragon with it, that would go together. But I'm not going to see, as I've seen many recipes with cilantro, tarragon, parsley. No, that makes no sense to me.
So what does a breakfast and a lunch look like for you? Typically?
Okay, the breakfast was 2 cups of coffee with milk, and that's it. I never had breakfast in my life, so
No.
except if I'm somewhere, there is something, I may have a croissant or whatever. But other than that, I don't. And for lunch, I had some lamb from yesterday. We had some lamb and some tomato and a piece of bread and some
Simple.
tomato juice.
Yeah. Do you think the ingredients are more important than the chef, or the chef is more important than the ingredients?
Oh, that's a good question. Both are. Both need the other. But ultimately, the ingredients are more important. Yes.
Yeah.
You cannot cook extremely well with very poor ingredients. You know.
Yeah. My wife's from Colombia,
Oh.
and we go there, and I always try to make one. I can cook Italian food pretty well. It's pretty hard when I'm down there. Just finding some mozzarella cheese. It's
Where
good
in
luck.
Colombia?
In Bogota.
Bogota. I was in Cali a couple of times. I gave classes there for a week.
Yeah.
They even made me a citizen of Cali, whoever the mayor was at the time. I go there, those women say, more butter, more butter. And they were all thin, elegant, beautiful.
Yeah, why is that? Italy, for example, France, everyone is slender.
Yeah, but it's a question of culture, a question of eating and eating well, but eating in moderate quantity, eating differently. But a small portion of pasta is fine. I mean,
Yeah.
this is what I'm going to have tonight anyway.
You and me both. But do you think it's better to be an innovative chef, or do you think it's better instead to be perfect at the traditions?
Well, it depends what you mean by innovation. By innovation, some people are going to put, raspberry sauce on top of Roquefort and say, "Wow, no one had ever thought of that." Yeah, there is a reason why. So people come with the weirdest combination. Sometimes they think they are creating. So innovation sometimes can be dangerous. And but in the kitchen, yes, if you cook properly and you move forward, look at someone like Thomas Keller, for example, who is an extraordinary chef. His innovation are in depth. That is, he doesn't mix incredible things together. No, he works with a puree of carrot. He makes small adjustment, did that, so that there isn't much embellishment to that puree of carrot. But when you test it, Jesus, I never had a puree of carrot like that one. That's so it's working and putting in depth, with small change to make it better and so forth. So different type of innovation are someone who tend to mix more ingredients, unusual combination, and so forth.
Yeah. You've run a number of kitchens in your life, of course. So I was curious what your what your approach was to leadership, you know?
Well, the leadership certainly in France was different, but I'm talking about, you know, in apprenticeship in 1949, the chef kicked you in the ass and said, do this, that, too, things that we don't do now, and even the way women were treated. But I mean, in France, women, as I said, in my family, all the women were the boss,
Yeah.
all the restaurants that I've ever been. So, but certainly the chef in Paris who yelled at you too, now it's quite different, and it should be different. I mean, I don't think that, I see those shows on television now which are confrontation and fight. This is not the way you teach cooking. I mean, teaching cooking, you have to give yourself, you have to have some discipline, but you have to give some of yourself and some love and explanation. So it's a different way of teaching cooking. It depends on your, but certainly I tell young chefs if they want to learn, I say try to work with the greatest possible chef that you can find if you can afford not to get paid much and so forth. So you work with Daniel Boulou in New York or Thomas Keller, and I said, they don't need your input, frankly. You know, they know what they are doing. They are the one in charge. So just say, yes, chef, look at the food that they are doing, duplicate the food that they are doing, whether it corresponds with your sense of aesthetic, whether it corresponds with your sense of taste, it's immaterial. Just do it this way. Try to see it through their eye, you know. And you do that for a year or two. Then you do that with a year or two with another chef, totally different, with another one, with another one. You do that with 4 or 5 chefs for like 10 years. Then you have acquired an enormous amount of point of view, an enormous amount of, now you can massage it and make it your own. And because ultimately you cannot forget yourself, you cannot escape yourself. So eventually you're going to do it according to your own sense of taste and aesthetic, but you will take all that material and eventually analyze it and put it where you want it. That's, for me, the right way to learn how to cook for a young chef. You know?
I have one question just for me. How do you like to make your eggs?
Oh, the simplest way, you know, just the 2 eggs in a skillet, on low temperature, so I don't want the egg white to curl and cook slowly, and I put a tablespoon of water around and a lid. The tablespoon of water gave me a bit of steam. It steamed and it cooked the top of the egg, just and a couple of minutes like that, beautiful eggs.
Is there anything you eat that would be a surprise for people that didn't know you? I mean, are you getting a Big Mac at McDonald's?
Oh yeah, of course. I get that. Anything you put in front of me, I eat. Usually, I'm not fussy. You know, I eat anything.
Yeah.